Welcome back. This is part 2 of the locksmith tools for beginners. Now, before we get into this video, I need to make 2 disclaimers. One, the brands that you see in any of my videos are not representative of what I think you should buy. These are simply what I use, and I'm using my tools as a demonstration. Number 2, keep in mind that they're going to provide some tools for you. They're going to provide a pin kit, they're going to provide a key machine, most companies will, and they're going to provide you basic rekeying tools. So what I'm showing you here are hand tools that, regardless of what company you go to, you can expect to need no matter what on day one. Now, all together, you shouldn't be spending any more than $400 to $500 on your first set of tools. Now, you can spend a whole lot less and you can spend a whole lot more. However, when it comes right down to it, you don't really need to go out as a day one rookie and buy a Hilti. You're not going to benefit from it. It's not going to help you at all. Your drill is going to be your largest investment. You should spend some decent money on it. If you go and buy a Harbor Freight drill and it breaks on you, after 2 or 3 times of that happening, you've already purchased a good quality drill. And as a locksmith, you're going to use your drill day in and day out. You're going to beat up on it, and the last thing you want to do is to have to buy the thing over and over again. So I recommend Makita from Home Depot or the Hitachi from Lowe's. You're going to find it labeled as Hitachi or Metabo. One of those 2 brands, like I said, Makita being my personal favorite and then Metabo being a close second, is going to be an excellent tool to get started. I've used the Makita for a couple of years before I ever went to Hilti, and I absolutely love it. I still have it in here. It's under my workbench. I still use it all the time. However, I like the Hilti tools. I have quite a few of them. It's just my preference, but I do keep the Makita because it's an excellent backup and it gets the job done. Loads of power. When I bought my Makita, the exact same deal, it was $400. So when you're looking to buy a drill, I would expect to spend anywhere from $250 to $400. $400 being the absolute max I would go for a new guy. I mean, that's pretty expensive. And like I said, the Makita $270, there's no reason why you shouldn't buy that drill, in my opinion. It's excellent. It will do everything you need it to do and then some. It's an absolute powerhouse. Now with the drill, the reason that you're going to need a drill, if you can only buy one tool to start off with, buy a drill, because with that you can take locks on and off. You can do everything. You can drill holes to install locks, which is what you're going to need this for. You cannot learn to install a lock with a screwdriver. You can't. All you can learn is basically how to swap one for another, but you cannot learn how to fresh install without a drill. And in my opinion and in my experience, that's the most difficult thing to learn and to teach somebody. So get a drill, get a good one, or a decent one I should say, and make sure you have it with you every single day. If you can find one with a bag, that's going to be even more ideal. I don't know if I mentioned this already, but you're going to be in there with a guy that's been doing this for a while. It's his van set up the way that he wants it, and you don't want to be bringing on 10 or 15 tool bags. I know that sounds silly, but believe me, there are guys on YouTube that will carry around 4 or 5 bags to install a deadbolt, and it's just ridiculous. You don't want to be that guy. You're going to piss him off, and chances are you're going to be kicked out of his truck and you're going to be put in with another guy, and very likely end up with round 2 of the same situation. So if you get a drill with a bag, you can use that bag to put your other tools in, and typically you'll be able to put your drill in that bag as well, which means you can have one tool bag that has everything that you need to get started, and you bring that with you in the morning, take it out when you're done, and then the next day or the next time you come into work, if they have a different guy with you for you to ride with, which would be great, then you have your one bag to pull with you. You don't have to go between vehicles and throw stuff in and out of each of one vehicle into another. So find a drill with a bag or buy a bag separately, but you're gonna want a tool bag. It doesn't have to be very big, just large enough to hold your drill and a few hand tools. The next thing you're gonna need is a set of screwdrivers. I have a mix here. I have a Savilla number 2, and then I have Wera. I have mostly Weras. Now you don't have to use these. The reason I bring up the brand is because some guys may see this and want the same tool, and that way they know what brand it is. So you're going to need a number 2 Phillips and a number 1 Phillips at least, and a small flathead, either 1/8 inch or 3mm with a cabinet maker's tip. The reason being is that primarily this is going to be for mortise locks, like the narrow style Adams Wright mortise locks, and you need a flathead small enough to get into the lock and remove the set screw. And if the set screw is really deep in there, if you have a flared end, and I'll show you what I mean by that, if the end of it is flared out, you're not going to be able to get into that lock to get the screw if it's in there deep. And this is what I mean by flared, how it kind of comes out and then back in. You do not want that. You can still work with it, however, you're better off getting a cabinet maker's tip. Now, you can typically buy a set of screwdrivers and get a number 2 and a number 1 Phillips. However, you may not necessarily get this flathead. And if you don't, you can either buy one separately, or in this case, this is a 4mm. I just ground the edges down. Took my grinder, made it flat on both sides evenly, and I can get all the way into an Adams Wright, no problem. Some storefront doors have a trim on the edge of the door with 2 holes as a relief cutout to get to the set screw. And if you have that flared edge, or if it's too wide on the shaft, you're not going to be able to get in there and grab the set screw, which isn't a big deal. You can take that whole thing off. But if you just have the right screwdriver, you could save yourself a couple minutes without having to take that trim off. The only way to get these tools is to buy them online. If you don't want to do that, I don't like the brand personally, however they are good quality. I would go to Klein, which you can get at Home Depot. They are in the electrical section. That would be an excellent choice as well. And for a set of Klein's, I would expect to spend around $20 to $30. That could be more, I really don't know. And we'll get into the pricing of the Wiras and these other tools that you see here that aren't at Home Depot or Lowe's. We'll get into that pricing in part 4. So the next thing, you're gonna need pliers. Now, I only use 2 sets here. Well, 3, I have needle nose, but I don't use them very often. As a beginning locksmith, you're not gonna be accustomed to, most likely, to the muscles that this job requires, specifically in the palm and in your fingers. And the last thing you want to do is to need to be clamping on a screw with or whatever with fatigued hands. It's gonna make your life miserable. Vice grips, you can clamp them on and forget about them. They're gonna hold on to whatever you have. You can do whatever you need to do, and you're not having to sit there and squeeze on them. Even as a veteran locksmith, I use these all the time. I clamp on tailpieces, cut them off, cutting conduit. Even if I just need to get some torque on things, I use these for impressioning all the time. And while I'm on the note of impressioning, if you are going to be learning that from somebody in your company, do not use full 8-inch vice grips. Especially if you're new to it, you're going to break off the head of the key. I'd recommend getting the 5 or 6 inch, just the little baby ones. For mechanical pliers, I use NWS linesman pliers, made in Germany. All of these tools, my screwdrivers and the Hilti, are all German tools. It's just my preference. You don't have to use German tools, and in fact, in terms of the linesman pliers, I use these Ace brand forever before I got this, and they work excellent. For like rim cylinders, you can use the cutting edge here to cut the tail pieces on them. Now, it's hard on your hands and it's hard on the tool, but it will do it. Primarily what I use these for is for untwisting tail pieces, which is what you're going to need vice grips and or pliers for as a new locksmith. But I also use these in my career as well for access control, which if you plan on getting into that, I think these are a great option because you can strip the wire and clamp your connection all with one tool. And to me, that's pretty big, especially when you're going to be doing nothing but terminating ends on wires. You're going to want to have something comfortable that's going to get the job done. You don't want to be switching back and forth through a bunch of tools, in my opinion. The added bonus is that you can grab onto nuts and bolts with this, which I use all the time for police locks and tridents, so that's another bonus for me. Now, the final thing is going to be Allen wrenches. These don't really matter if you go super expensive or super cheap. These are Craftsman. I don't necessarily use this set. I have some Wiras that I use typically, but you're going to need some kind of Allen wrench, and you don't need to get metric, but if you can get them in a pair, that's going to be good. Typically what you're going to need is SAE. You're going to have SAE, but metric, if you can get them in a pair, there's no problem with that, and I would recommend it if you can. This is all that you need. Now, again, you can buy most of these screwdrivers in a pack and put them all in your bag. You never know when you're going to need a really big flathead. I use this more often than you would probably think. not as a driver, but for prying. Makes a great small pry bar for, say, a latch that I have to pull apart, that's, you know, seized up, whatever the case is. It's a great tool to have for prying up doors to adjust the pivots on them. So get a full set of screwdrivers if you can, 6 or 7. The whatever company or brand you choose, find whatever their pack is, their multi-pack, and then go with that one. I would avoid the Milwaukee's. The screwdriver I just showed you, I have one just like this from Milwaukee, this really big one, and just being in my tool bag, the corners broke off. I never even used it. It just broke off being in there. So to me, that's a no-no. It's junk tools right there. So all of this you can fit in one little bag that you get with your drill, and you're going to be set. Now, again, depending on your area and what your company does, you may need some more tools, additional, or maybe you don't even need. Maybe your company only does residential, for example. You're probably not going to need this small flathead. I would recommend still having it, but you may not need it. So keep in mind that this is just a kind of a summary of what I think all locksmiths should have, regardless of their area. And you can take these tools and go to any company and be moderately prepared to do the job. And by that I mean there are going to be more tools that you need. And in part 3 we'll get into some of the more specialty tools, and then part 5 I will show you the installation kit video, which is going to be kind of a long video, so be prepared for that one. Part 4 will also be kind of a long video. So if you have any questions about any of these tools, feel free to ask me. I want to show you where I got all of these in part 4. I'll show you how to find good brands and how to find them for a reasonable price. All of this, if you go with the Makita, you can have for about $450 to $500, give or take. And these will last you forever, especially these brands. And which is good. You don't want to be buying these tools over and over and over again. So that's why I keep trying to tell you guys, buy good tools, and you'll never, you may have to, like, you're going to break these, all right? You're going to break a flathead, you're going to break a Phillips, you're going to break your drill. That's going to happen, especially if you stay in this career for a long time. But you can prolong that and get more out of your tool by having a good quality tool to begin with. So all that being said, I'm trying to keep this video short, so if you have any questions or if I left out anything, let me know in the comments, and I will either fill in whatever I may have missed or answer whatever questions you have. And if it's a question I feel like I can make a video out of, then I will do so. So until then, y'all stay safe and have a good one.